Well, hello once again. Today is Sunday. I don't even know what day it is. Let me look at my cell phone, my trusty little cell phone. It is March 4th. March 4th, Sunday. I went to a wedding last night. Didn't get home till late. That was kind of an interesting wedding, way out in the middle of the woods at a kind of a log cabin affair. Real redneck jobby, you know. It was nice. Everybody was relaxed. Everybody was cool. And it was just a generally good time. And it didn't cost a fortune to hold the wedding. You know, these kids that got married would rather use their money for something a little more substantial after they got married, which I thought was a good decision on their part. All right, today, since we finally got this carriage to break loose and move at least a little bit, and it's going down and coming back, but it is coming up here and jamming. You'll remember from the last video. Today what we're going to do is I'm going to work on the, I'm not going to go through it step by step with you, but now if something comes up that I think you should see, of course I'll do that. I mean, it's all pretty straightforward stuff. I mean, if you can read, you can do it. We're going to work on a little old trip solenoid. We're also going to work on the safety lever position. That's this thing on the rear that slides back and forth. I'll show you that later. I guess it's supposed to get rid of or detect warped records and then somehow shut the machine down or eject the record. By the way, this is something here we're going to have to work on at a later date. This red button you see down there, that's a record reject button. It is not working. I have not been able to get it to do anything when I press it, so we're going to have to go back and visit that little problem at a later date. And then we're going to straighten up those tension guide rollers I was telling you about that are keeping this thing from going down and coming back smoothly. It's jamming up at this end. It's because those guide rollers I mentioned. Remember I told you there was two of them with an adjustment? They ride along the bottom of the track. And they're part of the mechanism. They roll back and forth. And they're controlled by these screws here that I have to adjust. One of these screws, by the way, you can get to real easy. You unlock it and you just stick your screwdriver in there and adjust it to the, the space that they specify. The other one has a slanted part of the frame and they cut a hole in it. It takes a real skinny screwdriver to get all the way down through that hole to that thing right there and make your adjustment. You can go ahead and get to the lock nut from underneath, but in order to adjust it, you've got to take your little tiny skinny screwdriver, if I have one long enough, and all the way down there, and I guess it's supposed to be, what, I guess it's 3 to 20 thousandths. Anyway, we'll hopefully get it squared away. And if we have time, we may even, I don't know, I may wait until the next time to go through this pivot arm or pivot pin alignment. Now the pivot pin alignment is the mechanism that holds the record. I guess there's more than one procedure for that. There are clamp arm 1 and then there's clamp arm 2. This is the pivot pin alignment we start out with. Then it goes to the centering pin position. I don't know, I haven't even looked on the next page. Let's see what that baby has to offer us. Oh, then we just go to the magazine. Oh man, I'll tell you, that's pretty cool. We got to do the magazine, horizontal position adjustment. See, it's got everything in here. Everything you need to get this mechanism and the bottom plate it's sitting on, a mounting plate. Then you have a transfer arm. That's the thing that brings the record up. There's an adjustment for that. I'll be plowing on through that over the next few days. You will not see all of it, like I said, unless there's something that I think I should bring to your attention. Meanwhile, I told you I was going to select a radio that I was going to restore and repair for my dentist. And when you give somebody something, you want to make sure it's something good. Don't give anybody a piece of crap unless you can't stand the guy or the woman. Then you give them a piece of crap. But if you like the person you're giving something to, don't even give it to them with a stipulation or a caveat that says, oh yeah, this will work, but you got to do this. No. Or this, it works sometimes. I never could get it to work right. No. If you're going to give something away as a reward, as a gift, make sure it's fixed, repaired, operational, and it's something cool and good. If that means you got to go out and buy a brand new, and that's what you do. Otherwise, don't give the gift. That's the way I was raised. That's the way I was brought up. And giving away junk is not the right thing to do. So, Here's what I'll be restoring and repairing to give to our dentist. Some of you may recall this radio. This is a Zenith 7S633. It's from 1942. And it's kind of interesting in a way because you can, it has, of course, your shortwave, and it goes all the way up to 18 megacycles. And then, of course, your broadcast band. This is a very nice radio, actually. I picked it up at a flea market at an extremely good price. But each of these stations is tunable, and you have to do there's no tuning slugs on the back. You'll probably be surprised to find that the tuning slugs are actually in the back of this thing right here. If I can figure out how to get it off, there was a way. This entire thing comes off. I think it's a release there. This little lever on the side, I think, is the release. You have to push it in, and then somehow get it off of there. Let me see if I can get it off. Man, that thing was stuck in there. Oh, like it had been glued or something. I don't know. Anyway, once you press down on this little lever right here, it releases this latch mechanism on the back side. See it? It has little teeth that catch. It catches on the side. This is a metal, right? By the way, but it was stuck for some reason back in here. These one of these little things did not want to let go, but there's a lot of stuff back in here, pretty dirty and dingy. But anyway, this is where you do your adjustments for your stations, your preset stations. So once you get them preset, all you have to do is press the button, and it'll take it right to the station. Now, I don't think it'll move the needle. It just electronically changes the station, not mechanically, okay? So let's see if I can get this back in without crashing and burning. Here we go. Let me see. This goes in like this. Well, that's a tight fit. I may have to do some heavy adjustments on that. I think I will. This thing has been mangled a little bit. I'm going to have to do some. I'll have to do some nice adjustments. I'm not going to force that back in there. I'm glad that popped up right off the bat. So anyway, that's what we're doing. Then of course we have our little, these things lift in and out. It's kind of neat. Look it up. The Zenith 7S633. You can take a look at the schematic if you want on Nostalgia Air. I think it's there. If not, well, off. But the knobs all work good. Everything works fine on it. Turns it on. The switch is a little cracked along here, but that may be just part of the design. I don't know. No, I guess it's not cracked. It's just part of the design. And then, of course, we have our tone control and our band control. Look at that. It's cool, huh? Tells you what band you're on. Is that neat? I think that's pretty cool. I may have to wind up buying one of these myself before it's over. But it's a good size radio. Good. He'll like that. It's already, the cabinet's already been stripped by someone. I'm going to have to repaint it and everything. And they put a red speaker cloth on it. That's going to go. You know, that's nice and it's cool. And I'm glad the guy. It's a felt. They used the felt, but you know, I'm going to put a gold one in there with some kind of pattern, make it look more original. We're going to darken this up. We're going to darken the center part of this up a little bit. Down here we have to put a little bit of dark toner, about that wide all the way down. We'll make it look really good. The person that had it did real good. I haven't plugged it in yet. I want to take a look at the inside first, and then we'll see what happens. But with all the work the person did on it, chances are it's going to fire right up. I don't know. We'll see. Well, let's get started on this. It appears that I did a pretty good job. The first time, a couple of videos ago, you'll recall that I took out the trip solenoid, cleaned it all out, shined it all up so the slug, or the, whatever you call it, inside would go up and down, the plunger. Nice and easy, then put it back in. And I went back over it in the instructions right here. It looks like it's about right. The only thing I want to show you on this is the first step. It says lift the release lever. Well, there you go. That answers a question I had in the last video, I think. This is not the trip lever. This is the release lever. Harry Hall is right. Release lever. There it goes. Now it says the trip solenoid brackets, you have to release the screws and readjust it and everything, which I have already done. And when you're all done, you want that slug to be perfectly lined up with, that goes down through the middle here. You want it to be perfectly lined up vertically with the hole on the inside of the trip solenoid coil. And what that means is you want it to be left and right and forward and back, you know, with a little movement. so that thing can go up and down, and that's exactly what I have. I don't know if you can see this or not. Little movement forward and back, little movement to the side. That makes sure it's up and down. If that thing was somehow bound, you wouldn't get that movement left and right and forward and back. One more thing, and then we'll move on to the next item. The step after you lift your release lever, okay, it says to adjust this little Dumaflachi right here. Let me see, get over here. Yeah, let me get that. I'll have to get this out of the way. Can't, well, I guess I can't. That little thing right there, it says has to clear the top of the mounting plate by not less than 1/64 of an inch. Now this is not the mounting plate. The mounting plate is here. It's this thing right here. It's got the screws through it. That's the mounting plate they're talking about, not the space right here. So I thought the other day I might have had it misadjusted. I don't. You'll notice that I do have at least 1/64 of an inch clearance from the top of this pin to the mounting plate and behind this lever. Okay, there's a hole behind this lever. That's what you're looking at. All right, let's move on to the next part, which is the safety lever. All right, you're going to like the safety lever. That's kind of an interesting little deal. Well, wouldn't you know it, in order to do the safety lever adjustment on this thing, I have to put this thing back into the scan position. I think we're in the play position for where we left off at the last video. I've got to manually move that thing around by turning the motor all the way around, getting that thing to, that clutch arm to drop down into the scan position. So here we go, tired fingers coming up again. Well, as it turned out, I had one by running that carriage back and forth. It actually put it in the scan position for me, so I didn't have to wear my fingers out turning that coupling on the motor, which worked out great. Okay, so adjusting the safety lever, that's what we're going to do right now. It's real quick and easy. Basically what it boils down to, I'll run it through real quick, is we're going to loosen this screw. If need be, we will loosen this screw, and then we will adjust this gold thing behind it up and down. I'll just take a screwdriver and go up like so, or I'll push it down. And that gold thing has a little lip on it, as you can see right there. It pushes against, let me get my pencil, I can't do anything without my pencil. It pushes against this arm right here. And that arm goes up and down depending on how I move that gold little bracket. But you got to loosen that screw first. And the whole idea here is to put this fork right in the middle between the what they call the bracket and the eyelet, which is right here. And it probably could come just a tad to the left. I adjusted it before, but it probably should come just a tad to the left. And when you're all done, you're supposed to be able to take this right here and move it to the left and it spring back freely. No problem at all. It should be no binds, no nothing. If yours does not do that, if you ever have a jukebox that you're working on, if you get to this stage, this one here was really gunked up and gooked up. It was just in terrible condition when I first got it. It didn't even hardly move. I could barely get it to move that far. But now she's good to go after oiling and cleaning and scrubbing and all that sort of rot, okay? So that's what we're going to do right now. I'll just adjust this baby up just a tad. I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and do it while you're watching. I don't want to cheat you guys out of too much. Now, I'm not going to loosen the screw up too much, just enough to release the tension on that gold thing. Let me see, we need to go a little bit to the left, so that means it needs to go down. Okay, so we need to tap this baby down just a tad. Let me loosen it just a little bit more. It's a little bit too tight. I think we'll go ahead and try moving it from the top instead of the bottom. Alright, I'd say that's pretty darn close right there. That's right about in the center. That looks pretty good. Let me play with it just a little bit more. Alright, my old eyes say that that's pretty much in the center. By the way, while you're doing this, you're supposed to hold up on this thing here with your thumb. You press upward. You don't want this thing going down while you're trying to make your adjustment. You have to push upward, okay? Keep it in place while you do your adjustment, and then tighten up your screw. And that's it. Let's see if she's still working freely, which she is. Remember now, the entire carriage had to be at the far end. That's in the procedure, okay? Follow your procedure to the letter. All right, before we go on to the next step, which is actually, I think, adjusting those tension rollers up underneath on the other side. That'll take away our binding action. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and take a little bit of this Lucas grease, and you notice how dry this has gotten. I don't know why it's like that. May have been from me, messing with it. I don't know why. I put some oil and I put a little cleaner in there. It may have washed some of it out, but I don't think so. But let's put a little more grease on there. I don't like seeing metal to metal with no grease. Alright, I think I got enough oil in there to do, or enough grease in there rather, to do that. I also put a little thin coating along this rail where the wheels of the carriage run. Keep in mind when you do greasing of anything, I don't care what it is. Yeah, it makes everything run smoother. However, grease also collects dust and dirt, and it gums crap up. You'll notice that when we first got this machine, it was just covered with crap and goo and dirt, and it was all because it had been oiled and oiled over the years, and it just kept, probably the repairman would come in, and he had probably had some kind of squirt bottle or something he would squirt down in there to keep the mechanism oiled, and I don't know what they did in the old days. They may have had a squirt bottle where they just squeezed it in different places, and each of your repairmen had his pet little places probably to oil, and they kept them running. The whole idea was to keep them running. These were not nostalgic, wonderful jukeboxes that we're all going to love in our old age. No, they were money-making machines, and that thing better make money, or the guy that had it in his soda shop or garage or who knows where, the bar, they would get someone else to bring in a machine that did make them money. Keep in mind, there were more than one jukebox vendors in those days, just like there were more than one pinball machine vendors. Okay, you're not making money for me, out it goes. Get somebody in there that can keep it going and make that moolah. All right, what's next here? Let's take a look. I think the next thing, the next thing is the adjustment of those tension springs underneath. And I'm going to need this little baby right here, a very long, small, flat tip screwdriver, and a very small, let me see, I think I'm going to need my little 1/4 inch box end wrench to get up underneath there and uncrack the lock nuts on that thing. I'll show it to you in a second. Again, in the what it looks like, I'll show it to you in a book, and then I'll just get it done. Carriage guide roller adjustments, no problem at all. All you have to do is unloosen. Now, this is a roller. I'm going to show it to you in a second. This is a roller, and this is a roller. They're fastened in the middle with a couple of screws, and you have a lock nut and an adjustment here, and you have a lock nut and an adjustment there. As I've said before, you have to go through this hole, and it requires a long screwdriver. The only thing you have to understand here about this is whatever you do to one, you have to do to the other. If you find that it's binding a little bit as it goes back and forth the track, and you say, well, I'll just loosen up this one about a 1/4 of a turn. No, you have to loosen them both up at the same time. They have to have equal pressure on each side. Don't have one tighter than the other. That's probably the situation I have right now. I have one tighter than the other. I don't know. But they say you turn them all the way in until you have no no front and back movement of your carriage. Tighten them up, and you don't gorilla. There again, you don't gorilla this stuff. You just tighten the screws up, unlock your lock nuts, loosen up your lock nuts, screw it in there. By the way, I always say unloosen a lot. I had one of our subscribers. I gave this long video, and the only thing he got out of it was, "Did you say unloosen?" Yeah, I did. Okay, it's loosen. Okay, I know that. Okay, I do make mistakes. I'm not perfect, people. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and tighten these screws in until there's no movement at all, front and rear of the carriage on the track. Then we're going to back it out a half a turn, it says, and a half a turn should result in 15 thousandths clearance. Then you run your carriage back and forth a couple of times, and if it's still binding, then you unscrew it a 1/4 of a turn again until you get it where you want. Then you lock the nuts down. That's all there is to it. Now let's take a look at those nuts and that roller. Let me see. I'll zoom in here. I'll show you one side. There's one side of the roller. See it? Pressing against this rail on the inside of that toothed track. And there's the adjustment screw for it right there. It takes a flat tip. Now the other, the way to get to the other one is you have to run your screwdriver through that round hole there to get to it. You can unlock the lock nut from underneath. You have to kind of tip this whole mechanism up to get to it. But once it's down, you make your adjustment through that hole there for the second one. And then when they're both good, you lock them up again and you're done. That's it. Nothing to it. Piece of cake. Anybody can do this. Alright, this thing here is now, I've got everything locked in to where it won't move. I still have to loosen them up, but a word of caution here, guys. Many times I've mentioned this reverse switch right here. Okay, in order to get to that back adjustment screw, you have to slide the screwdriver in behind the reverse switch. Just be careful. Be careful around that thing, okay? Don't, let me back it up here a little bit. Just be careful. It has to slide in down here. Make sure the entire mechanism is sitting level when you do this. You want as much clearance as you can get. So I'll go ahead and slide that baby on through that hole in order to get to that hole, and then I'll back it off, lock it up, and we'll be done. Careful, careful, careful. Well, just to let you know, this is how I had to tip this thing up in order to get to that screw that's up in that darkened hole up in there. As you can see it way up there in the top, see it? And the next thing we're supposed to do is this clamp arm adjustment. However, we're not going to do that until we run this thing through the motions and see if it's going to go down from one end to the other without binding. And if that's the case, then we can go ahead and move on to the clamp arm. Now this clamp arm, by the way, has a lot of screw adjustments on it. I'm kind of hoping they're set good. I don't really want to go through this mess if I can help it. It's going to take a while to study all this. One mistake and, you know, I got all kinds of problems. But this thing here, you know, this is your, it can be used for 33 1/3. That's what that center pin is for. Or for 45s. That's what that, you know, 45s have the larger hole for that right there. That's if you had a an automatic speed mechanism for it that would adjust. It could sense and it changed the speed of this thing to play either one, 33 1/3, small, you know, small records the size of a 45, but some of them had the tiny hole in the middle, some of them had the large hole, and this machine was able to sense it through the automatic speed adjustment or control. I forget what they call it now, but anyway, we don't have that on our jukebox, so one less headache, you know. So let's run this thing through the paces. Let me get it set up. Alright, here we go. Get this light out of the way. Let's hit our old switch and see what happens. Fire in the hole. Okay, now here's where we started having our problem. Go back the other way. Alright, it's going back the other way. Alright, now come back here and go back up here and stop. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I am invincible. Okay, it's time for coffee. Well, I just finished the old coffee break, and I think what we're going to do, I decided while I was drinking coffee, last video we kind of ended on a negative note, you know, where the carriage wouldn't even move. It was all jammed up. This time, let's go ahead and end it on a positive note. And to add to it, notice we have our flowers popping up here now. Wintertime is about over for us in Arkansas here. Matter of fact, it ended, I think, actually about a week and a half ago when the heavy rains began to fall and everything's starting to turn green, the grass. Time for me to get my garden in shape too. So I don't know when the next video is going to be up. I hope to just keep marching, doing what we're doing. But if there's a 2 or 3 or 4 day delay, it's because I'm building new frames for the garden. I've got to get straw put in. I got a lot of things I got to do. So until next time, I hope you had fun with this one. I love successes. This is John.